Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of The Lore You Know. Hi, Sarah.
20. That's
I
impossible.
know, right?
I've said that for the last
Impressive.
6 episodes. 20? And we're not, I
Well,
don't even feel like we're like halfway done,
mate,
maybe.
I mean, with this continent, maybe. No, I don't even think we're
Well, we
halfway done.
covered two of the other. No, one, two. We talked about the Dragonlands.
We did talk about the Dragonlands, yeah.
Dragonlands.
At
Yeah,
least
yeah,
lightly,
you're right.
yeah.
One of the other four continents. Okay,
That's fair.
yeah.
But today we're going to
Um,
talk about Fangsfall, which is both a city and a peninsula.
which was not what we were originally going to talk about when we
Right.
talked last week, but there has been some delay on that subject, so it'll
It's
probably be
true.
a couple more weeks before we get into that mystery subject. So Fangsfall and stuff. We're like, all right, let's do. Where are we on the map?
Yeah, and we've got
This
a
little corner.
I like how last week we
Skip.
were like, we have this amazing secret for you all.
And
Just
we and
kidding.
it's still a secret.
Psych. For what it's worth, it's also a disappointment to us. We would like to be sharing it with you, but we are also excited for when we get to share it with you in the
For
near
the
future.
reasons for the delay makes me very, very happy.
Yeah.
So I'm bummed that we're getting delayed, but I'm very happy why.
Absolutely.
So there's that.
And we'll get to share the why with you someday.
In 2 to 4 weeks.
Today we're going to talk about the formal name of Peninsular Environs of Greater Fangsfall. I just loved that.
We're going to talk about the little city of Lambsport.
Yeah, and I love that the whole history behind its name. It's really fun.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. So
yeah, so rewind. And okay, here's some beautiful contradiction. What came first, the Elzen Empire or the Charduni Empire?
and I also noticed another bit of that same, well, I mean, on a different topic, but the same like contradiction, where Fangsfall was separated by the Asathi Empire of the Swamps of Contet, which was like inactive for thousands of years.
Well, but has been active for 2,000 years.
And
So
that's fair. They
yeah,
just
the
don't really
history of
explain. They were like, there was this general statement in the beginning where it's
yeah.
like, it was really insular for really ever because of this until this happened. But
To be
that's not
fair,
the
the
case.
history of Lambsport goes back like 300 years. It's
Yeah.
not that old.
Yeah.
So that's totally fair. It's not like we don't have anything about this place prior to
Right.
400 years ago. So
Yeah.
who the hell, it was probably like, and there's some stuff we don't know.
Yeah, there's a sticky outy part on the continent.
Yeah. Well, and it might not have been sticky outy because of ice ages and things.
That's fair. Yeah.
So who knows? It might not have even existed back in the day because it was like, and a rock fell or something.
So really, this is a great place that if you as a DM are like, I have this civilization pre all of this that I want to put somewhere, put it there because no one went there.
Well, I mean, I could say the Asahi probably went there,
That's
but
fair, yeah.
there was no jungle there. So it was just sort of this peninsula that it's where the goblins lived, basically. It's like this sort of whole region of this, like, putting my hand over this whole part of the map
Yeah.
is like goblin country for all of, so, Devil's March, Fangsfall Peninsula, Chardonnay. This is just goblin country.
Yeah.
That's who lived there for a really long time. Nobody went there because it's like, it's all the hobgoblins and bugbears.
There's
and
a strange
stuff.
smell. Oh, it's
Yeah,
the goblins.
it was the goblins, and that was so yeah. And I make this. We've talked about all these different races, the Manticora and the Asathi and the Slytherin and all this stuff. Is like no mention of goblins. Yes, Guardlands has goblins,
Yeah.
many goblins.
Yeah.
Are they a playable race? You could.
I mean, technically, you could
They don't
take the
have rules
5th
for it.
edition version of
Goblin.
goblins and play them. They might.
Yeah,
They'll probably be a little underpowered.
They're like a halfling with, fangs
Right.
and pointy ears. Unless you're playing a hobgoblin. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're they're a thing. And there's a lot of them. Who made the goblins? I think I want to say it was Gorak. So
That would make sense.
kind of Gorak country. The glutton, the guy with all the.
Right.
We're gonna get into that. So this little region of who cares So, and there was some fuzziness this year as to who claimed it first, the Elsens or the Chardonnay, which confused me because I was like, the Elsen Empire came first, guys. And then they're like, well, the Chardonnay, when the Elsens took from I'm like, what the? I'm just confused. But in either case, the Elsens had claim in this zone, the Chardonnay had claim in this zone. No one really cared. The Chardonnay finally were like, we call it Lamb's Port. We're gonna put a port here. We're gonna move all the people here to get them out of the way. And everybody, we're gonna move you here. And a bunch of people and they were just like random little villages and, and by people I mean mostly humans and random people. Who were like, and the Chardonnay was like, we're gonna move you all to this port. And they're like, what, why? We were happy. Nope. You're gonna fish or something.
Right.
And they were like, okay. And so it was like remnants of people left over from the Elsen Empire and who were just kind of living in this area going, don't go in the jungle, Asathi, And they all got kind of shoved into this little corner by the Chardonnay. Okay, and the attorney's like, that's called Lambsport. Good luck. Bye. Yeah. And they left like a governor, but no one really gave a shit. And that was it for like a while through the war. Chardonnay fucked off to go do the war, and this was sort of stuck here, and it was basically pirate haven. Not much going on. But then during the war, something catastrophic happened in this region, which changed everything. And because about 2,000 miles north, the gods and the Titans were beating the shit out of each other. Right. And they were beating the shit out of Gorak the Glutton. And Denev went in and they, like a couple of the gods grabbed him, and then she just went in and just started ripping out his teeth and hucking him willy-nilly. Which was like, good on you, Denev. You could have maybe put them in a jar or something. Right. I don't know. She's just throwing his teeth. And a whole bunch of them became the spires of Gorak, the perforated plains, as a bunch of them just went into the ground and made holes. Or some of them didn't go into the ground and were above the ground and made mountains. And that was like a shitload. And one of them went off and became the Devouring Reef. And I think that was one of the two particular teeth, because Gorak and he didn't have just like the 32 or
right
48 or how many people have 36?
He has all the
standard.
Teeth.
He has like hundreds of fucking teeth. He's like triple line shark teeth, and they're all massive. But he had two that were massively massive. These incisor fang, and I think one maybe had become the Devouring Reef or ended up by those reefs. I don't think. One is kind of vague where it happened to it. It might have become Devouring Reef, might have gone on who knows where. The other one, she threw really far, like baseball winning strike, like holy crap, and it landed 2,000 miles south on that just outside of that little village of Lambsport. And poof, mountain-sized tooth lands. Crunch. About a day's north.
Yeah.
Day's journey north of Lambsport.
It's really hard to read on the map because their color scheme was maybe not the best when choosing colors, but right here it says Fang Quarry.
Yeah.
That's like the base of the mountain.
Yeah. So what happened is they were like, manna from heaven or giant tooth from the sky. And they went, well, let's check it out, and discovered, and already these hills north of Lambsport were like great for copper mining and iron mining, and the Asathi had used them for mining resources and all that business. But then they were like, what's this bountiful thing from the heavens? Right. Let's go check it out. And suddenly just started like chip. Hey, it's this great stone-like substance. We could construct things from it and maybe grind it up and use it as mortar and build walls out of it. And so they start mining this colossal tooth. Right. Which is amazing.
I think it's called Fangstone.
And yeah, and they ended up renaming the little port of Lambsport, super mediocre name, to Fangsfall, which is way cooler.
Well, I'm pretty sure Lambsport was meant to be that jab at the the people who the Charduni came in and they're like, okay, you're
Yeah.
now our property. Move up here. You are our lambs, and this is where we will
Yes.
keep you.
Oh, totally. Totally.
And so, kind of, I mean, I would rename my city.
Yeah. And when something that big happens, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Because suddenly they went from like, we have some fish,
Yeah,
you know, and some, or if the snake people will leave us alone. And two, we have this
yeah,
cool thing. This is neat, and we can do shit with it because being a Titan essence, you can do weird stuff with it, like spells and magic and components and things. Not all of them good things, many of them bad things.
right.
But as kind of a basic subset, it's kind of interesting. What are the components of a giant colossal tooth? So, and you figure this thing is like, I'm trying to think, like giant. I mean, it's not. We're not talking Everest size, but we are talking pretty big mountain.
Yeah, bigger than a hill, smaller than
Way bigger
Everest,
than Everest.
somewhere in
But
between.
yeah, but big enough.
Yeah.
Big enough that you'd think, yeah, how big could Gorak be? I don't know. I just could have pictured it grew or something as she threw it, because how tall was Gorak? 100 feet. His tooth is hundreds of feet, so it doesn't map. But magic, a wizard did it. I don't know. Hand wave. I'm like, how long would it take to mine a tooth? And apparently they've been at it for 50 years.
Right.
So
And like,
so
before they renamed it, so the Chardini didn't just like decide, oh, it's in our hearts to just give you back your city. Like, the Divine War was happening, and they were getting owned by Asathi and goblins and what else did it said something else, another race. They just were like getting the Charduni were getting their butts handed to them, and so they had like all of these terrible losses. And by the time it was over, the people who hadn't been doing the fighting, like the people of Lambsport, were like, "Hey, there's only like a handful of you left."
Sutak, the other race was Sutak.
Sutak, thank you.
Yeah, and so it was like, well,
We'd like our city back now.
so we're like, we're gonna rename it. And yeah, because they were surrounded by bad.
Yeah,
And the Charduni, I didn't really retreat because eventually they win the war. But when they retreated, when they kind of settled, they settled up in Chardonnay, or Duhannay, which has been renamed Chardonnay. That's a whole nother episode. They resettled up north of there and just pretty much abandoned Lambsport / Fangsfall.
yeah.
And you can, I'm sure there are still some Charduni dwarves there because they're kind of all over this region, but they didn't really care anymore. So post-war, it's basically just pirate country. Goblins pretty much control the tooth, and they're just like, nah, we worship it because it was the tooth of our creator Titan.
Right.
You know? So nobody really does anything with it for like a good 70, 80 years. And then the Calastians happen.
Right.
Which, what? That's way over there. So Calastian Empire is meanwhile going nom nom nom. I'm numbing all over the southeast, and they finally hit this little city-state at the very tip of the hegemony called Rohak.
Rahok is how I've been saying
Rahok?
it. Yeah.
Roanoke. It's not even on this map. It's like so you can't see it.
Yeah,
it's like in the border of my wall map.
If you can see my cursor moving on the map, if you're watching, it's way down here. I'll even zoom in.
So it was this little state that the Calastians kind of eventually got to, and it had been controlled by a noble family as a city-state for quite some time, and they were followers of Corian. They were like, no, Chardon bad, Corian good. Yes. And so finally the nobility were like, we have to get out because we are outnumbered. And they were besieged by Calastian army, and they basically, a bunch of mithril knights, so paladins of Corian, who were the honor guard of the noble lord, who's like the son of the guy who had ruled this place, who died during this invasion.
Right.
So he's like, they've just made me king, and I have to leave,
Right? King of, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So him and his paladins basically run out of the keep and run to the shore, grab a couple boats. They get it like a handful of boats, and break out through the Calastian naval blockade, and attempt to go to Mithril, and the blockade is like, nope, that is not happening. So like, fine, we'll go northwest and try to go to Shelzar. And then as they're heading to Shelzar, there's this giant storm outside Shelzar, and the boats just like are, get up, we're going.
Yeah, and it doesn't specify, but I'm wondering, was this one of those like completely random, who knows why they happen firestorms? Because I can see not landing during that, being like, oh shit, we're going this way, never mind.
Yeah, so they keep heading west.
Yeah.
Past the swamps, because they're like, we can't land there. Snake people will get us. And then eventually just land desperation in this little peninsula. And they're like, we got to stop. We need like fresh water.
Yeah.
You know? And
one could say, okay, so here on the map is Shelzar, way on the right side, and Fangsfall is way over here. So why didn't they land in all of this? Well, this is Asathi. All the Asathi swamps of Contet, not hospitable land. No one wants to go there. The Jeweled City is right there, which, I mean, at that time, probably not an ally. That was like a tumultuous time at best.
No, actually, they should have been an ally, but the retcon, because there's a huge retcon here,
right?
As part of and Fangsfall gets kind of hit with this retcon of the Jeweled City retcon. So, I mean, what I kind of imagine in this is like, all right, we've got our Nina, Pinta, Santa Maria. We've got to have somewhere between 2 and 6 boats, in a little group. And we're like, we need water. And they're like, there's land, but it's scary land. And they go send a rowboat out to the swamp. And then the people in the rowboat get eaten by an alligator. And they're like, no! They keep going, is what I envision.
And it's very likely, Fran just brought this up, that people didn't know about the Jeweled City yet, or they didn't know that alliance was there yet.
Yeah.
So they were just like, we're going around.
Yeah, but this is totally retcon, because originally it was like, no, Asathi bad, they will eat you. And now with the whole Asathi not bad, as we talked about last week, you kind of have to hand wave, why didn't, because they didn't. Alligators, I don't know.
Yeah, at the very least, very inhospitable land.
Very inhospitable. So, or alligators and windstorms, and whatever reason they end up in this peninsula.
Yeah, and this peninsula is really the first area that they would have come to that is not a shithole.
It is not. Well, it is a shithole, but it's a different.
It's a dry
kind of
shithole.
Less of a shithole.
Right. It's not a swamp shithole.
But it's not a swamp. So they land there with their remaining ships, whoever managed to survive all of that business, and they're like, okay, we're gonna just get some food and water. Hey, this place isn't bad. I'm tired of traveling. We're staying, kind of a thing. But of course they get there and there's all these people who've been living there for, since the Charduni left. So they've been living there for a good 140 years. And they're all like pirates and randos, and goblins are everywhere. And so Lord Killian Braille, who's that inherited lord, comes in and he's like, I'm putting down a flag.
I claim this land for me.
Claim this land in the name of me.
Yeah.
And you don't have a flag, therefore you don't have a country, therefore this is my country now. To quote a little bit of Eddie Izzard there, and he came in and basically went, mine, and they went, no, and he went, smash, and they went, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it does help that you have like this posse of Mithril Knights in your pocket,
Yeah.
They were just like, we are going to take this. Okay.
Okay. Guess you are. So basically the pirates are like, they tried to fight a little bit and they kind of failed, and the goblins tried to fight a little bit and they kind of retreated.
Yeah.
So he takes over Landport. Or Fangsfall. It is Fangsfall by this point. And he's like, mine. And they're like, will you feed us? Yes. Okay. You'll protect us from the goblins? Yes. I have paladins. And they go, okay. Will you make us worship Corian? Yes. Really? Okay, no. Okay, fine. I'm not like the Calastians. I'm not going to enforce that. So they do build this big freaking temple to Corian. But there's also a big frickin' temple to Keeley, so
Yeah.
because that's pretty much who they followed before Lord Vrail showed up.
Yeah, because a lot of these people are essentially descendants of the Elzen Empire, who was
Yeah,
they were big Inkili people.
big Keeley people.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're still gonna have our Keeley temple, and Vrail's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care, as long as you pay your taxes. And they're like, yeah, okay. So Fangsfall kind of new, and they're trying to figure this shit out. So
Yeah.
that was in AD 126. So he's been ruling for about 40 years, 30 years, 30, between 30 and 40 years. I can't round. 34 years.
So this thought crosses my mind a lot when I'm reading about stuff from this whole setting when we're talking about Ghelspad.
Yeah.
Like, you have a lot of this shit is new, like a lot of stuff, and you're just like, wow, why is everything new? But it just points out that this is a post-apocalyptic setting.
Yeah.
Even though it's fantasy, 150 years ago shit went sideways. And
So sideways that they didn't even know if it was day or night, literally.
right. And so, like, so much stuff that was there for so long is just gone. And so why are there all these new things? Like Fangsfall. I think Fangsfall is a great example, but like so many times I'm just like, wow, this is like a few decades old. Oh, this is like 100 years old. What? Oh, right. The Divine War happened. So if you ever wonder, why is there so much shit in this very old world that is new? Because that's why. Like, I mean, everything old is gone.
Well, except for tons and tons of ruins.
Right.
And weird monsters and all. But which makes it a great fantasy setting
It's so
for
fun.
running game. Yeah, which I love it. So Fangsfall is like there, and Vrail runs it. He's got something. He's over the years built something of a little navy. It's really the port between Derakeen and Shelzar and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Which is great. Not that there's a lot of trade from Derakeen by ship, because they also do a lot of trade over the Akrudin, but Derakeen is this big flippin' nation up here.
Yeah.
They've got the largest, we haven't really gotten into them too much, but they've got the largest Wizards colleges up there, the Phylactery Vault, and so there's a lot of stuff here. So the kind of the safest way to travel is by ship.
Yeah. Yeah, because going through the desert, I mean, it's not pleasant to begin with, but then you still have Sutak running around, you have, all of the horrid monsters that run around through there. Way better to just, like, even though that's called the Inferno Gulf and this is called the Liar's Sound, like, it's still safer.
Well, you wouldn't go into the Liar's Sound.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even go to the Inferno Gulf. You would come down.
Go around it.
You would go around the awful that is Chardonnay.
Right.
Which is, I describe as sort of the North Korea of Ghelspad. And then come around and you stop in Fangsfall, resupply, pick up some supplies, and then continue on your way to Shelzar, wherever it is you're going. So it is a decent stopping point on the way. And much more welcome than anything in Chardonnay or between there. I mean, there isn't really anything else, because you wouldn't go in Inferno Gulf because it's awful. And Inferno Gulf is like all magma coming into the. I think it's hot and awful.
And do you know why Liar's Sound is called Liar's Sound? Like, all I know is that
the winds, I think.
Gotcha. I know that the waters are like treacherous. Like, they're not. What's the word? Like, you can't really plan ahead for them. They shift. They're like this swirling mess.
Yeah, and my understanding is between the reefs and the harsh winds over that whole area, it's just really treacherous.
Don't want to take your ship in there.
Yeah, so unless you're like, we really know this place well, it's basically pirate country of pirates who, like, we have nowhere else to go. We're desperate enough to go here. We've been sailing this stuff so long. Because the Sathi aren't really known for their naval anything. Presumably, with the retcon, I would think the Jeweled City would have something of a navy, but
potentially. I mean, they're not like super close to the coast. They're like smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, but they control that region.
Yeah.
But there's no really mention of them, and there's no details in the retcons. So could you have an Asathi navy? Yeah, logically it would probably be pretty small. Certainly smaller than anything Shelzar or Calastia would build.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Fangsfall is much of a navy, but like those handful of ships that Lord Vril came in that
Right.
they've kept up. But it's certainly known for fishing because it's like that was pretty much the industries they had there was fishing and mining, and now it's fishing and mining and tooth mining, and maybe a little bit of farming. The temperature that the climate is very mild for the region, relatively mild, I should say. It's warm and humid, so you don't really get a cold winters there or anything like that. Probably colder than Shelzar just because of the water, but you're still pretty close to the Accruted, and it's just going to be blowing hot air on you anyway. So yeah, I'd say it's a great place to live, except that there's nothing near you.
Yeah. Well, even
because like
so, like this pleasant looking little like grove of trees that's right next to
yeah,
Fangsfall
talk about
looks
the
pleasant, and it's called the
it is
Darkwood. What's that?
yeah, it's important.
Yeah, and
The
I mean,
Darkwood.
it's called the Darkwood Grove, and even the name may not be like, oh, well, that's ominous,
Yet
and
one
it
of the most
is.
important resources. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So one of those places, the Darkwood Grove. If you go and dig into these, I don't know if the new book talks much about Darkwood, but the old book certainly did. It was one of those like list of funky substances. So you had mithril,
Right.
funky substance, adamantine, funky substance, whatever. And so that goes all the way back to Frodo had the mithril jacket,
Right.
magical substance that isn't magic, but it's really clean to work with. So Scarlands had its kind of own sub list of magical substances you
Yeah.
could find things made out of. Sapi's scales and stuff and whatever. Tapu J crystals. One of those is Darkwood.
Yeah.
Holy to Deneb, no surprise.
Yeah.
Wood. And one of the why Deneb had such a hate on Gorak, why she was the one who ripped all his teeth out, was
Yeah.
because he ate most of her fucking Darkwood.
Right. And this is the last patch, at least in this area.
The last major patch.
Yeah.
So the last significant location of Darkwood and Ghelspad beyond like the elves have saved these 2 trees.
Right.
Anything bigger than that is right here.
Yeah.
In Fangsfall, and it's like 6 trees. No, it's probably a little bit more than that, but it's the only significant supply of Darkwood, and also but considered a rare resource. So it's not like you can just like we're gonna go rip it all out and make shit out of it.
Yeah.
No. You're gonna wait for a tree to fall down naturally.
Right. Yeah, because if not, the druids that are inside are like those, not those fun like huggy druids. They're the like I'm gonna stab you if you come near my tree druids.
Yeah, because that's one thing you will find outside of Fangsfall is lots of den of druids and other fae, various faes of what do they call them, dryads, are like, don't fuck with our trees. This is it. This is like one of Denev's holy sites outside the Ganges and Amalthea. It's probably the next one down the list. So you do not screw this. So Darkwood is a resource from Fangsfall, but very rare.
Yeah.
And and the kind of thing you could get conceivably like a Darkwood shield, but it would be like, and this was inherited, and this was handed down from me from my great grandfather, kind of Darkwood shield.
Back when there was an actual grove here, besides these 6 trees. Yeah.
And we didn't have to just wait for a tree to fall down. I feel like, or like a branch fell. Yes, make a spear, or make a whatever you're gonna make out of it. You don't burn Darkwood. Let me put it that way. It's too awesome. So that is one of the resources, and one of the, I would say, tourist attractions. So we get that. We've got the mine itself, which, and one of the things Lord Vril did is chase out all the goblins, or chase out a lot of the goblins, and they now have a whole area there, the quarry. But goblins still live in the tooth or around the tooth, so the paladins are pretty much enough to keep the goblins out from the kind of core quarry central, but they're still around, and they're like, this is our god's tooth. Stop stealing it for building your city walls.
Right.
So it's certainly an issue.
And I like this this entry in the third edition info where it says occasionally terrible beasts arise from the depths of Gorak's fang, which makes me think that like it not only is it like his tooth and it's hanging out and the goblins are like
Yeah.
but like it's also still corrupting shit. Like
and
stuff that was down there is now like being altered by like that little tooth nerve that's dangling out or whatever, and
there's blood, like Titan's blood in the nerve, and
right.
I just imagine the deep nerve of that tooth is just going to be like land of horror.
Yeah.
Titan spawn and one, and this could be a source of a lot of the Brown Gorger Slytherin too.
Right.
So think Slytherin rat folk who want to eat everything are probably because they were generated by rats eating Gorak's bits, which are probably mostly his teeth, and I'm sure a lot of Brown Gorger Slytherin.
Yeah. I could see.
Or they've come here as part of.
I feel like maybe I'm wrong on this. The new creature collection, I'm gonna open it while I'm talking here, has a variation on the old Vatling rules, if I am correct.
The old
Fatlings, yeah. So like you can have Fatlings that weren't just like people, like a human style. So they have like dwarf Fatlings, and technically you could have like a goblin that went down in there and came like so. Like a Fatling goblin might come rolling out from Gorak's fang. That's just like, Wah!
I guarantee that there are Fatling freaking bugbears living under that too. Guarantee it. Right? I mean, you gotta have that. Yeah, no, because Fatling can be any humanoid, so it doesn't have to be a human or an elf. Spoiler: there is a Fatling in Vigilant.
It's true.
We do not make it clear what race it's from, but it's vague. But it's not clearly a human, I can tell you that. I kind of think it was an elf, I can't remember. Did it have pointy ears? Might have pointy ears. But Fatlings are they're really. Did we talk about them before?
We have mentioned them before, yeah.
We mentioned before. The one of the vilest, and I feel like the fat shaming here is awful, but
I mean, it's not the best name for sure, yeah.
Because they have. I don't want to talk about it. It's just bad. But they're just a horrific monster. There's also then they have their partner monster called the Gauntling, which suffers from the same condition, which is overexposure to Gorak's substance.
Right.
Essence. But the Fatling, they're both always hungry and ravenous and eating everything. But the Gauntlings eat as much as they want, but they're basically the anorexic.
Yeah, like super emaciated.
They don't gain weight no matter how much they eat. So they're kind of weird twins as exposure to this substance of Gorak. So Fangsfall definitely is contaminated by Gorak in much the way that the Blood Sea is contaminated by Khadim. So great source of we need Titan's blood or Titan's go to Fangsfall, walk into the quarry. Get a pick.
Yeah, so the old entry for Fatling was here is a Fatling, and there's the stats for it, and now it's a template, much like hags. Hags, there aren't night hags and sea hags and all that. You can use them if you want to use those.
That did have a template as well as the sample character, because I remember being able to apply it. But anyway.
Interesting. Yeah. So the 5th edition creature collection, which I highly recommend, go pick it up.
Oh God. Do pick up.
Yeah, it's all template, and here's a Fulthus Marek, the dwarf Fatling.
Yeah, which is great. So totally guarantee that they're going to be in there.
Yeah,
I do love the idea of a hobgoblin or a bugbear. What's the difference between a goblin, a hobgoblin, and a bugbear other than height? CR.
You nailed it.
Height and CR. But yeah, goblinoids. So we got that there. Kind of a good place for adventuring if you wanna have kind of a small, like, Shelzar's too big. I want to do a pirate kind of game, but with a government that is good but not pirate. You know, you get your paladins, lawful good government. It's a nice mix, which it doesn't have the Tortuga feel of a lot of the other piratey areas, but it doesn't have the overarching vibe of Calastia, where it's like, no, you know, the fascism and all that business. It's just sort of kind of a groovy government. And honestly, it's in a lot of ways it's sort of a smaller Mithril, realistically. A smaller, less organized Mithril, because it is run by paladins, just not as many. And they don't have a giant golem, they have instead of a giant tooth. So, and they're on opposite ends of the continent, which I think is funny. And Fangsfall in the original, their only major ally was Mithril, which is ridiculous because they're so remote from Mithril that like once or twice a year, Mithril sends a well-defended ship to Fangsfall with like, here's some stuff, and a couple of paladins who needed to train far away because they were impulsive and young and here's some stuff, and bye, see you in 6 months, but you know, and that would be it. And so they would get like a couple ships from Mithril a year, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Nothing much happened. And that was the original allies, and they're kind of loosely allied with. You know, they're not enemies with Shelzar. They're not enemies with Derakeen, but like not really allies like the way I was Mithril, where they could just call on and for aid. In the new book, it's like, and suddenly they're allies with the Jeweled City, and I'm just like, this retcons everything. This is such a huge change. I mean, not everything, but significantly enough that it feels a little odd. So, like, suddenly in the new version, Fangsfall has a little bit more oomph now.
Yeah.
They've got an ally that's not as far as, I mean, not to the level of the Alliance as Mithril, certainly. But at least, like, oh, there's the Safi who aren't horrible. Although they primarily do worship, like, Chardon, and are they really that much better than Calastians? I don't know. Okay, they're divine now, but they're still kind of assholes, so I don't know. Necromancers and
right.
And then the north, they've got Chardonnay, or all necromancers, and or not necessarily necromancers, but all, you know, Chardon knights and slavers. So it's like, yeah, it's still, even in the new edition, it still kind of sucks. You know, and theoretically they're allied with the Ironbred, but Ironbred are so small and have so little influence that it's not really helpful. And they're way closer to Shelzar than they are. So even in the Redcon, it's like not a lot of. I don't think it changes all that much for Fangsfall. Other than the Jeweled City being less of a threat. But I would even say it's not even not. I would say it is a little bit of a threat. It's just not as heavy of one. And even then, you could imagine political disputes over, like, we have to these copper mines. All right, I get you've claimed the tooth, and we're not messing with that, because, yeah, but these other things are, you know, I could imagine that kind of political disagreements or whatever happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Did I miss anything? Probably. Just scanning through.
Yeah, me too.
Some of the kind of funky, they talk about pit fighting, which I was like, that still feels so not Corian to me, but again, Corian government not necessarily that much control over what happens in the details of this.
And pit fighting was a big thing in Els.
And was a big thing in Els,
yeah.
So that makes sense. They talk about snake pit fighting, which I was just like, wouldn't the Asathi come in and go, stop that?
Or they'd be like, oh, we do this at home, yeah.
or potentially. I don't know. They would have. I would think they'd have an opinion one way or another. But they were talking about what was it? A mongoose. It's like who put
Oh yeah, they have
mongoose
mongooses. Yeah.
and cobras and like Ricky Tikki Tavi shit going on in there.
Right.
Like, okay, there's a thing happening. Gambling's super popular. You know. And Keeley obviously is super, like, yeah, we worship Corian. You know, it's like the nobility,
Right.
paladins there, and then everyone else worshiping Keeley.
It's totally fair, as how it should be. I mean, what?
And I love the line. I gotta read this one a little bit. While the government of Fangsfall bears clear marks of the patriarchal society of Calastia, because Rourke and all that.
Right.
The general population is fairly egalitarian. The strong worship of Inkili encourages equality among not only the two sexes, but among those who would straddle the line between.
Yeah.
The paladins of Corian do not take sides in issues of sexism, although males do dominate their ranks as well, which is consistent with what we've seen.
Yeah.
So that was old school. New school, you can do whatever you want, but it's established on that kind of foundation.
Yeah.
So a good stopping point. In my game I used it for the inevitable MacGuffin collection quest.
Yeah, good place for it. I could definitely see it being like if you want that that Monster Hunter game, great place for it. If you want to deal with you could call it political intrigue. It's not quite the same, but like dealing with the goblins and their I don't want to call it an empire, but their established area that they live in, being like, don't come up in mine, our tooth. Yeah. Whereas, you know, so like going in and defending against the goblins and the goblinoids and all that, and the concept of the Jeweled City becoming an ally in modern day also opens up a lot of, oh well, ambassadors from the Jeweled City come over and are like, we need your help in the swamps of Contat, you know. So there's a lot of options for Fangsfall. I feel like
the way I look at it is, and this is a silly perspective maybe, but I look at it as a good starting point town for if Scarred Lands in Ghelspad was an open world RPG video game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've said that about Mithril,
right?
Although Mithril, starting in Mithril, and I do love that as Mithril because it's like the Mythic Golem and all that, but that it almost feels like too big, you know, because like Mithril should be like, and we've finished the first hour, and now, but Fangsfall feels like this is where we were during the first hour.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm level 1 and I can't do shit, and I'm gonna go kill some goblins in a quarry.
Totally.
Totally. It's a good low-level campaign area before you go to the Cruden, before you go to the swamps, and because it's so close to a lot of cool stuff, but it's its own little place of relative safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that as a good, like, kind of not the giant campaign there. It's like,
right.
And then we eventually go out and go to the 5,000 places where there's ruins and death. So it could be that too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hooray, Fangsfall.
Hooray, Fangsfall. Yeah, it's not a. I know this isn't as interesting episode. But if you want to play Goblin.
Which I think would be fun. Doing the other way, be like, we're a group of goblins protecting our tooth from those damn Fangsfall people.
Yeah, we played. Fran ran a Goblin campaign.
Nice.
We played Goblin, so it's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's doing something like that. So and goblins, like halflings, get the or did they get the halfling thing, or did not the luck thing, but the hide, the rogue hide thing.
I know they can they can hide behind creatures that are larger than them.
Person.
Right.
Yeah, I think goblins have that ability.
Gotcha. Nice.
So, yeah, that halflings have. Not the luck thing. That's pure. Okay,
awesome. Well, tell me all about yourself, Sarah.
Shortest episode ever. Stewart. I pretend to know a lot about the Scarred Lands. Apparently, I actually do. I'm looking for my book. I wrote this book with
Where's
my
your
wife.
book?
It's in the piles of crap. It was underneath the
There it
Ghelspad book.
is.
Vigilant through Shaz and James Book 1, where you hear all about Ikade Lennar and his journey to awful places. Nowhere near Fangsfall. Nowhere near Fangsfall. Yeah, I wrote a bunch of stuff on Drive-Thru RPG as well. You can find Vigilant, Drive-Thru Fiction, Drive-Thru RPG, but I've got several titles on Drive-Thru, including Mist of Algos and Maritime Mission, Vigilant Patrol Maritime Mission, and Serpent and Fora for 5e, and some more stuff coming eventually someday, please.
Yeah. Secrets.
So you can find all those there.
And I'll put all of those links in the show notes if you're
and the
watching
calendar
this.
for Scarred Lands as well. Yeah.
Which is so useful. I can't hype it enough. It is so awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's cheap too.
Right?
All this shit's actually quite cheap.
Right? It's true. It's true. And I am Jeremy Hochhalter. I am the host here on WH Publications. You can find me over on Twitter at WHPubs, on Facebook at WH Publications, and I also publish on DM's Guild and Drive-Thru RPG. I will put the links up for those in the show notes on YouTube. Thanks for coming to join us for our short episode today. Hopefully our secret project will be announced soon and we can talk about all the fun that is that. And until then, we will continue talking about this stuff.
Just continue our way up the coast.
Yeah. So until next time, everyone stay safe and take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Bye.
Bye. Wash your hands. Well.
Yeah.